Letting go of someone you still love isn't like walking away. It's like tearing your own heart in half without making a sound. The pain doesn't explode, doesn't rage. It seeps slowly like a wound that refuses to close, leaking into every ordinary moment. It's so quiet that the world still sees you as fine, but only you know each heartbeat is being sliced apart. You feel it at night, lying under a dark ceiling, in an old melody drifting through the street, in the faint trace of a familiar scent passing by. It isn't just the loss of a person. It's the loss of a version of yourself that only existed with them, the version that knew how to hope, how to laugh easily, how to believe in a future sealed by a held hand that never let go. And that's why it's so hard. Why the mind knows it's time to release, but the brain and heart drag you back like an addict in withdrawal. Why society pressures you with "be strong" upon words that suffocate more than they heal. Why the cycle denial, anger, bargaining, emptiness repeats like an endless loop. On this path, we'll search for answers from every angle neuroscience to see why love and loss carve so deeply into the brain. Psychology to expose the traps that keep us chained to pain. Cultural conditioning to see why society silences heartbreak. And Stoicism to learn how to stand tall in the face of it. The pain may be silent, but it isn't meaningless. It can burn you to ashes or forge you into steel. The choice lies in how you face it. Why breakups feel like withdrawal and how your brain heals itself. Here's the brutal truth: when you break up, your brain acts just like an addict cut off from their drug. Sounds insulting, but neuroscientists have proven it with fMRI scans. When heartbroken people were shown pictures of their ex, the same brain regions that process physical pain lit up, as if someone had pressed a lighter against their skin. In other words, heartbreak equals the brain believing you've been burned. The difference is, no one can see the wound. You still wear a clean shirt, sit at your desk, type at your keyboard. But inside your brain is on fire. I remember a friend, Kevin. After a 4-year relationship ended the first night, he couldn't sleep, tossing like an animal caught in a net. By the third night, he called me at 2 a.m. Bro, it's like a monkey in my head, replaying every scene from the first time we held hands to the last dinner. I laughed. That's not a monkey. That's dopamine withdrawal. He went silent, then asked, "So when does it stop banging the drums in my skull?" The answer: the brain heals itself. But it follows a process. When you love, your brain tags dopamine and oxytocin to that person. When you lose them, it panics, demanding the old fix. That's why you stalk their social media, clutch mementos, send desperate messages. You're not longing for the person, you're longing for the feeling. Your brain is addicted to the you that existed with them. The good news: the brain can relearn. Just like the song you once looped endlessly as a teenager, one day you didn't care for it anymore. Not because the song changed, but because your brain did. Love works the same way. Right now, every trigger calls their name. But months from now, your brain will anchor dopamine to something else: a workout, a conversation, even a morning coffee. And here's the important part: you can guide your brain. Don't feed it scraps by checking your ex's social media. That's like handing an addict the smell of the drug without the hit twice the pain. Instead, you have to give the brain new rewards. Kevin started running. The first day he nearly collapsed after 2 kilometers. But by the second week, he told me, "I finally slept 5 hours straight." That was his brain relearning, finding dopamine elsewhere, slowly weaning itself off the old supply. Stoicism reminds us we suffer more often in imagination than in reality. Most of your pain isn't from what's happening now. It's from your brain replaying an old reel until the tape wears thin. But every reel breaks eventually. And when it does, your mind goes quiet. Neuroscience confirms this. After 3 to 6 months, the brain regions that once lit up with breakup pain begin to cool. The healing isn't overnight. It doesn't snap like a Marvel scene change. It's gradual. But day by day, hour by hour, your brain peels off the old adhesive and breathes again. So if you're lying there thinking you might die without them, remember you're not dying. You're detoxing. It aches, it burns, it convinces you you're shattered. But the same brain that once carved the wound will in time stitch itself closed. The burn won't last forever. It will leave a scar, yes, but scars are proof you survived. And one day you'll touch that scar, smile, and think I went through withdrawal. And I'm still here. The psychology of why we prolong our own pain. Here's the strange thing, breakups hurt enough on their own. Yet many of us don't let the wound heal. Instead, we sit there sprinkling salt on it and then wonder why it never closes. Psychology has a few answers. First, attachment theory. Certain attachment styles make letting go harder. People with anxious attachment cling to hope like a drowning man clutching rotten wood, even when they know it won't float. For them, no longer feels like the end of everything. Their nervous system screams, maybe she'll text tomorrow, maybe he's just busy. Maybe. That isn't logic, it's fear pulling the strings. Second, cognitive dissonance, the clash between reality and belief. Reality, they're gone. Belief, this love was forever. The result, excuses. They just need time. If I change, maybe they'll come back. It's the brain shielding you from a brutal truth. But like rubbing ointment into an open wound, it doesn't heal, it burns worse. And then comes the most common mistake, playing detective. Scrolling their social feeds, dissecting captions, scanning for hidden meanings, keeping old shirts, ticket stubs, even broken mugs. Replaying scenes in your head. What if I'd said something different that night? In plain words, you turn yourself into the writer, director, and audience of a movie that already ended. And the only outcome is prolonging the pain. I once saw this with a friend, Sarah. After her breakup, every night, she opened the playlist her ex had made and listened again and again. She knew it hurt, but she kept pressing play. When I asked why, she shrugged, because at least when I listen, I feel like he's still here somehow. That's when it hit me. We don't just fear losing the person. We fear losing the feeling that we were once loved. Picture it this way. You've got an open wound, and every day you sprinkle salt on it. And then you wonder, why isn't it healing? Stoicism answers with its cold, clean wisdom. Don't demand that things happen as you wish, but wish them to happen as they do happen. Epictetus. Reality has already happened, not to please or punish you, but to confront you. When you cling to mementos, replay, stalking, you're not preserving love, you're resisting reality. And no one ever wins against reality. The truth is, you're not chained to them anymore. You're chained to your own psychological habits. Seeing this clearly is the first step to stop torturing yourself and start healing. Why men struggle more than women after breakups. Here's the paradox: men hurt just as much as women when love ends. In fact, studies suggest men may struggle more. Why? Because of the social script stamped into them since childhood. Men must be strong. Men don't cry. Men move on fast. As boys, they hear it every time they fall. Stop crying, you're a boy. As men, they hear it after heartbreak. Forget or find someone else, don't be weak. So men learn to lock their pain in silence. They don't talk, don't share, because they fear the label of weakness. And that silence is the most dangerous thing. Look at social patterns. Women are allowed to cry, to tell, to share. They have support networks, friends, family communities. Men are pressured to pretend nothing happened. The result, they crack jokes at the bar and then stare at the ceiling at night, swallowing pain in the dark. I knew a man named Mark. After his breakup, he told no one. Outwardly, he kept joking, playing basketball, going to work. Everyone thought he's fine. Months later, He collapsed into the hospital from stress and sleeplessness. He admitted, "I couldn't tell anyone. I was afraid they'd think I was weak." That's the price of the script. The metaphor is clear. Imagine a man with a broken leg. Instead of a cast, people tell him, "Walk it off. Be a man." He limps along, forcing it until the bone heals wrong, forever crooked. That's men's hidden grief, shattered inside, forced to stand straight outside. The consequence: stress, depression, even dangerous escapes. Research shows men's suicide rates spike far higher than women's after breakups. Not because men are weaker, but because they're not allowed to be weak. With no outlet, the pressure detonates. There's something important about Stoicism that most people misunderstand. It never teaches men to fake strength. Quite the opposite. Stoicism teaches us to face emotions head-on, to accept them as part of reality, and then to use reason to respond wisely. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "When you arise in the morning, think of what a precious privilege it is to be alive. Pain does not make you weak. The way you face pain defines who you are." The problem with modern society isn't that men are too weak, it's that they lack the language to speak about pain. And so they go silent. But that silence isn't healing, it's corrosion. It turns a heart full of love into a ticking bomb. If you're a man in that place right now, understand this: tears don't reduce you. Sharing doesn't strip your worth. Admitting you're hurting doesn't make you less of a man. Pain is human. Pretending you don't feel it, that's what's dangerous. The cycles of breakup grief. We often hear there are 5 stages of heartbreak. It sounds neat, like a math formula: go from A to B to C, and eventually to E done. But reality isn't neat. It's more like a roller coaster designed by a drunk engineer: jagged tracks, sudden plunges, looping back to where you started. You think you're moving forward, then a song plays, and suddenly you're right back on day 1. The first stage is denial. Your brain refuses to accept reality. You stare at the wall and whisper, "No way." She'll text back, "He just needs time." Some check horoscopes, scroll through 10 signs your ex still loves you, or even message online psychics. You're not stupid. Your brain is simply flooding itself with a kind of morphine numbing the truth. But morphine always fades, and when it does, you crash into stage 2 anger. Anger storms in like a hurricane. You blame them. "After everything I gave, this is what I get." Then you turn the blade on yourself. "How could I be so blind?" Sometimes you rage at the universe itself. "Why now when I needed them most?" You bristle like a porcupine, spines up for anyone who asks if you're okay. No, you're not. And you want the world to feel it too. But rage burns out. And when the fire dims, you slide into the strangest game your brain can play: bargaining. You become a defense lawyer for the very relationship that betrayed you. "If I change, maybe they'll come back. If I make more money. If I send just one more message." You draft long texts and delete them. You imagine yourself on their doorstep with flowers, watching them cry and run into your arms. Reality check: they blocked your number last week. Then comes the depression. This is the quietest but deadliest stage. Motivation evaporates. Work feels pointless. Friends feel pointless. You feel pointless. You're like a phone plugged in, but with a dead battery. The light blinks, but nothing turns on. You drift through crowds like a ghost, smiling on the outside, rotting on the inside. But no one knows how one day you exhale differently. That's acceptance. It doesn't arrive with Hollywood music or fireworks. It arrives quietly, almost accidentally. You hear the song that once broke you, and this time you just sit there. No tears, just memory. You walk past the cafe where you once laughed together, order a coffee alone, sip it and feel fine. You realize you don't need to forget to move on. You only need to accept that it's over. And over doesn't mean lost everything. It simply means one chapter closed so another can begin. Of course, no one walks this path in a straight line. Some skip from denial straight to depression. Some cycle through all five, then loop back to bargaining. Some think they've reached acceptance until one night a photo drags them back. Pain isn't linear. It's a labyrinth. You'll stumble, circle back, hit walls. But with each loop, the sting lessens. With each fall, the wound closes a little more. From illusion to reality breakup, pain is like an uninvited guest that barges in whenever it wants. Driving to work, laughing at dinner. In the middle of a crowd, it whispers, remember their last smile, remember the promise to stay forever, and suddenly you can't breathe. The first truth, this pain isn't weakness. It's proof you're still human. The brain is wired to replay emotional peaks. It loops the highlights, the radiant smile, the rainy night embrace, and hides the fights, the awkward silences, the dull days. The brain edits like a biased filmmaker, cutting a reel of perfection. And you mistake that edited highlight for the whole truth. You mourn a paradise that never really existed. The second truth, you're not just grieving the past. You're grieving a future that never came. You'd written the script in your head, marriage, kids, travel, growing old, hand in hand. When the breakup hit, you didn't just lose someone. You lost an entire movie you thought you were starring in. And you cry not just for today, but for the what could have been. But what could have been was never real. It was a dream. And you can't lose something that only lived in your imagination. The third truth, you hurt because you mistook their choice as a judgment on your worth. They left and you translated it as I wasn't enough. They chose another and you heard I failed. But that's a lethal error. A breakup is not an audit of your value. It's a sign of two paths diverging. Nothing more. If you make love the measuring stick of self-worth, you'll always live as a hostage to someone else's approval. And one more truth, love that clings to ownership is not love. Real love gives the other person the freedom to choose. If they no longer choose you, begging, jealousy, manipulation won't bring it back. It only reveals your fear of control. Stoicism teaches you control only yourself, never another's heart. True love isn't possession. It's walking together as long as they freely walk beside you. If they stop letting go, isn't weakness, it's dignity. The healing path, then there is no magic cure, but there are steps. 1. Cut the illusions. Stop stalking their profiles. Stop hoarding keepsakes. Stop replaying the movie. Every time you do, you're dosing your brain with the drug again. Starve the addiction. 2. Feed your brain new rewards. Exercise. Write. Read. Call friends. These tiny acts matter. Your brain needs dopamine. If you don't redirect it, it will drag you back to the past. One day you'll finish a 5K and feel alive. That's your brain rewiring. 3. Reframe the story. When the pain hits, remind yourself, this isn't the whole truth. It's just the highlight reel my brain chose. Remember the dullness, the letdowns, the reasons it ended. If it had been perfect, it wouldn't have ended. 4. Remember you didn't lose everything. You lost a person, not the world. Billions of futures still exist. The right one hasn't arrived yet. And when it does, you'll understand why this ending was necessary. 5. Practice acceptance, not forgetting. Acceptance. It isn't defeat, it's power. It's the first step to moving forward to doors you can't yet see. You are not a loser for losing someone. You are simply being returned to your own path. And that path, believe me, holds more light, more laughter, and more love than you can imagine today. The pain you feel now is real, but it is not permanent. Happiness, whether you believe it or not, is still waiting for you ahead. Pain is the hand that recreates you. When love ends, our first reflex is always to look outward, Who will replace them? When will I find someone new? But sometimes, the light doesn't come from a new person. It comes from your own transformation through pain. Look back, suffering forces you to do what you would never normally do. It forces you to pause, to question, what do I really want? Where did I lose myself? What inside me must change? Pain, in a way, is the roughest yet most honest hand. It tears away the old skin so that a new version of you can emerge. Yes, the process burns like tearing off living skin. But imagine this, a snake that cannot shed its skin will die in it. Humans are the same. The cracks in your heart are the very openings through which light enters, allowing you to see yourself more clearly. And here is what many overlook: temporary solitude is not a punishment, but a privilege. It is the pause that lets you do the things you once neglected, spend time on your passions, pick up a sport, learn a skill, travel alone. It is the moment you sit down, sip a slow coffee, and don't need anyone else to confirm that you're okay. Solitude is not emptiness. It is space for you to expand. It is not as ugly as you think, only because society taught you that being alone means being incomplete. In truth, being alone is when you are most full. Happiness doesn't just come from finding the right person. It comes first from becoming the right person. A calmer person, a steadier person, who doesn't tie their worth to a relationship, who cannot be broken by someone's choice to stay or to leave. A Stoic would say you cannot choose who walks with you, but you can always choose how you walk. And through heartbreak and solitude, your steps grow stronger. Hope then does not lie in someone out there who hasn't arrived yet. Greater hope lies within you, in the self rising from the ashes, learning to breathe again, to smile again, to savor the freedom you once never tasted. One day you will realize losing them was not losing everything. It was being handed the rare chance to rediscover yourself and to become the version you never even believed possible. Closing words. Letting go of someone you still love is one of the quietest pains. It's not just losing a person, it's losing the version of yourself that once lived with them. You miss the brightest moments, you mourn the dreams that never came true, and you think your worth has crumbled with them. But that is only illusion. The truth is simpler: someone chose to leave. And now you have the power to choose again. Choose to remain imprisoned in memories, or choose to rise, accept reality, and open a new chapter. Marcus Aurelius once said, "You have power over your mind, not outside events." Realize this, and you will find strength. Someone leaving cannot take your strength. Only when you hand it over yourself do you become weak. Healing is not forgetting. It is learning to live with the memory without letting it chain your feet. It is looking at the scar and understanding it is the scar that made you stronger. Do not call this loss a failure. Call it training. Do not see it as the end. See it as a new page. And remember this: from the ruins, you do not only find yourself again. You discover a version of you that is stronger, wiser, freer. The right person, deeper joy, quieter days. All of it is still waiting ahead. You have not lost everything. You have only just begun.